In this video, we are going to learn how to write equations for lines of best fit. A line of best fit is like a best guess line that we draw on a scatter plot of data points. It shows us the general trend or relationship between the data. Imagine you have a bunch of points on a graph, and the line of best fit tries to go right through the middle of them, capturing the overall pattern. It helps us make predictions and understand how one set of data might depend on another. Let's draw a line of best fit for the data in this scatter plot. The steepness of this line doesn't reflect the steepness of the points in the scatter plot. So let's change the steepness. Now the steepness matches the steepness of the points in the scatter plot, but most of the points are above the line. So let's move it so that more or less half of the points are below the line and half the points are above. That looks like a pretty good line of best fit. Now we're going to write an equation for this line of best fit. Let's go ahead and use the slope-intercept form, where m is the slope of the line, and b is the y-intercept, or where the graph crosses the y-axis. All right, for these two highlighted points, going from left to right, we go down 1, right 1. So that down 1 would be represented by a -1, and the right 1 would be represented by a +1. So the slope equals down 1, right 1. The rise over the run, or the change in the y's over the change in the x's. Now when we divide by 1, like we are here, we just get what we started with. So we can rewrite this as just -1. Right, so we have a slope of -1. And the y-intercept, it's where the graph crosses the y-axis, and that looks like it's at 7. That's where the line there crosses the y-axis. All right, we're ready to write our equation. So m is the slope, and b is the y-intercept. So we have y equals -1 times x plus 7. Now this 1 looks a little bit awkward. So normally when we have a 1 as a coefficient of a variable, we just leave the 1 off. So let's rewrite this as y equals -x plus 7. Now let's take a moment to interpret the slope and the y-intercept. So in this equation here, y equals 1.4x plus 2. That's the equation of a line of best fit for the scatter plot. We are going to explain what the 1.4 is and what the 2 means. So let's take a look at the graph for a moment here. On the x-axis, we have degrees of temperature, or in other words, the temperature. So 25 degrees, 35 degrees, and so on. And on the left side, we have ice cream cones sold. So how many ice cream cones are sold? And we notice that as the temperature increases, the number of ice cream cones increases also. Right, the slope of this line is 1.4, and the slope represents the rate of change. So what we can say about the 1.4 is that for every 1 degree increase in temperature, the number of ice cream cones sold increases by 1.4. Now we can use this sentence as kind of a template for interpreting the slope of the line of best fit. So in other words, for every 1 unit increase in the x variable, the y variable increases by the slope. Now the 2, that's the y-intercept, but it also represents a beginning point. So the y-intercept happens when x equals 0. So in this case, that would be when the temperature is 0 degrees. So this 2 means that we sell 2 ice cream cones when the temperature is 0 degrees. All right, the equation of the line of best fit for this scatter plot is y equals -0.9x plus 20. And we need to explain what this -0.9 represents and what this 20 represents. So let's look at the labels on the axes here. All right, so we have the number of practices missed on the x-axis. And on the y-axis, we have the points scored. And we notice these points are trending down. So in other words, this is showing that the more practices we miss, we tend to score fewer points. All right, the negative 0.9, that is the slope or the rate of change. So using the same format as in the previous question, we can say something like, for each time a practice is missed, the predicted number of points scored decreases by 0.9. And notice the line of best fit is making a prediction. Now the 20, that's the y-intercept, and that happens when there are 0 practices missed. So this line of best fit predicts that the number of points scored when we miss 0 practices is 20. Or we could say when 0 practices are missed, the predicted number of points scored is 20. Okay, I hope these examples have been helpful. This is Mr. Ela, signing off.